How healthy is it to use artificial sweeteners if you have blood sugar problems and type 2 diabetes? And how healthy are these substances anyway, even if you don't have blood sugar problems or type 2 diabetes? Let's be honest, we all heard of the horror stories that come with the usage of artificial sweeteners. The internet is full of them. But we also know that not everything on the internet is true, and you definitely shouldn't believe everything you read. So that boils things down to the question, are artificial sweeteners a good thing to use whether you have blood sugar problems or not? I'm Ali from Illness Free Life, and in this video you'll learn the two major categories of artificial sweeteners and the commonalities between them and the differences, what the advantages are of using sweeteners, what the disadvantages are of using artificial sweeteners, and how to use them if you have blood sugar problems or type 2 diabetes. Now, when it comes to the world of artificial sweeteners, there are a lot to choose from, but you could group these artificial sweeteners into two large categories or groups. One of the categories is called the polyols, also known as the sugar alcohols. And the other one is either called the intense sweeteners, the intensive sweeteners, or the low-calorie sweeteners. Now, what sweeteners belongs in what category will be discussed in this video, but it's good to first determine how we're gonna place which sweetener where on the ladder from healthy to unhealthy. And two things to look at are the caloric content of an artificial sweetener and their effect on the blood sugar, which can be determined by the glycemic index, which is a measurement for how good or bad something is for the blood sugar. And when we compare it with something, it's good to compare it with regular sugar, because you use artificial sweeteners to replace sugar with something. Now, when it comes to sugar, it contains 4 kilocalories per gram. And the glycemic index of sugar, table sugar in this case, is 65. So those are the two things we're gonna compare to, so you know if an artificial sweetener is okay to use or not, and whether it's a good idea to use them in general. The first category of artificial sweeteners are also called the polyols, or the sugar alcohols. You could recognize these artificial sweeteners often by their name, which tends to end in the letters TOL, or toll. Examples of these artificial sweeteners are erythritol, xylitol, maltitol, but also a sweetener like isomalt, which doesn't end in TOL, is also a polyol. Now, when it comes to the caloric content of polyols, they contain around 2.4 kilocalories per gram, which is around 60% of the caloric content of sugar, which is of course an improvement to sugar. But what's more important is their effect on the blood sugar. Their glycemic index tends to vary somewhere between 0, which is extremely good, and 50, which is not so great. To give you a couple of examples, maltitol has a glycemic index of 36, which isn't that great. Xylitol, which is a sweetener often used in chewing gum, has a glycemic index of 7, which is extremely low. Sorbitol, another polyol, has a glycemic index of just 2, which is even lower. And the most popular artificial sweetener within this category, erythritol, has a glycemic index of 0, which is of course the lowest you could score, and which means it has little to absolutely no effect on your blood sugar. So when compared to regular sugar, polyols are definitely better. Their caloric content is about 60% that of sugar, which is good, but what's more important is that their glycemic index tends to be extremely low, with an exception here or there. And having a low glycemic index is good, because the lower the glycemic index is, the lower the effect of that artificial sweetener on your blood sugar will be. The second category of artificial sweeteners are the low-calorie sweeteners, or the intense sweeteners. And like the name says, they're low in calories. To be more specific, they contain little to no calories, and their intensity is huge. They tend to be 200 to 400 times sweeter than regular table sugar, which means you only need a small amount to sweeten a product. Sweeteners within this category are popular, or at least well-known sweeteners, such as aspartame, sucralose, acesulfame K, and stevia. The most commonly used sweeteners within this category are the first three: the aspartame, the sucralose, and the acesulfame K. The reason for this is pretty economical, to say the least, which is they're easy to produce, they're easy to use, and they're consistent in their sweetening power with no weird aftertaste. This is of course ideal for food producers because it means they just need a small amount of this sweetener to consistently sweeten their products with the same flavor. One of the major advantages of this product group is that the sweeteners contain no or little to no calories, and their glycemic index is 0, which means they have no effect on your caloric intake, which is good, and they have no effect on your blood sugar or type 2 diabetes, which is also good. And because you just need a small amount of the sweetener to sweeten a product, you will not use a lot of it anyway, even if it would have had a caloric content or some effect on your blood sugar. But it doesn't. Now, what are the advantages to using artificial sweeteners instead of sugar? Well, that's obvious, I think. We all know that sugar has a negative effect on the body, especially added sugar in products. And if you already have blood sugar problems or type 2 diabetes, then every teaspoon of extra sugar in your life is an unnecessary teaspoon. And replacing sugar with artificial sweetener means that you could still enjoy somewhat sweet tasting product without making your blood sugar levels any worse or worsening your type 2 diabetes. So the advantage of using sweeteners is kind of obvious. Sweeteners have no bad impact on your blood sugar or type 2 diabetes. And this is also backed by science. Aspartame, for example, a commonly used artificial sweetener in sugar-free or zero products, has no negative effect on the blood sugar or type 2 diabetes, which is of course obvious because aspartame is not a sugar in itself and thus cannot affect your blood sugar in any bad way. But of course, this doesn't mean that artificial sweeteners are good or healthy to use, and there are definitely some drawbacks. But before we discuss these, do you like this video and want to receive more of these videos? Please don't forget to give us a like and subscribe for free to this YouTube channel. That way you'll never miss a video we publish, and you'll help us reach more people to improve their blood sugar levels and reverse their type 2 diabetes. And now back to the video. Unfortunately, most of the sweeteners mentioned in this video do have side effects. The side effects tend to be gastrointestinal side effects, such as windiness, cramps, diarrhea, but these side effects tend to only appear if you use a lot of the sweeteners in a day or in your life in general. However, one of the most important and dangerous side effects of using these sweeteners is their effect on your healthy gut flora. Most of the sweeteners mentioned in this video are toxic to bacteria. That means they're toxic to the bad bacteria in your life, but unfortunately also the good bacteria in your gut. And research shows that, for example, aspartame has a killing and devastating effect on your gut flora, which is definitely not a good thing. And it seems to elevate cortisol levels, which is a hormone we release when we feel stressed. So regardless on how you look at things, there are definitely some health drawbacks when you use artificial sweeteners in your life. And the more and more often you use these artificial sweeteners, the higher the chance of you experiencing these drawbacks and side effects. Now, a lot of us have heard horror stories when it comes to using these sweeteners, especially aspartame and the chance of you getting cancer from it. And there is, of course, research that somewhat shows that this is true. However, there are two things you should know about these kind of researches. Number one, more often than not, the researches that show all these horrible consequences of using sweeteners are performed in rats, in which rats are injected with extremely high dosages of some kind of sweetener. If you would extrapolate this dosage they get to human beings, it would mean that you have to inject yourself with 1 pound or 2 of a sweetener a day to develop the problems these rats developed, such as cancer. Now, you don't have to be a doctor or a rocket scientist to understand that if you ingest a pound or two of a sweetener a day, you might get problems, especially if you inject it directly into your veins. If you do extreme things in research, you will get extreme results. And when it comes to these sweeteners, you of course will get horrible things such as cancer and whatnot. But when we look at the same researches that are done in rats, for example, in which they get a normal dose that humans might get, we don't see these problems. There is also ample research done in humans that shows that sweetener usage might lead to this disease or that disease. And this might be true, but it's good to understand how they do this research. In research, they tend to compare group 1 with group 2. Let's do an experiment where there are 3 people. People in group A don't use sweeteners at all. People in group B use a little bit of sweeteners on a weekly basis. And group 3 is an extreme group that uses a lot. And in these types of researches, it's only group 3 or C that has the health problems. Let's say group 3 is the group where people drink between 10 to 15 cans of sugar-free soda a week. Now, 10 to 15 cans of soda a week is of course a lot. But forget about the soda. Just hearing the fact that somebody drinks 10 to 15 cans of sugar-free soda a week, what type of image do you have when you think of this person? Close your eyes and think of that person. Do you see somebody who eats healthy, works out, doesn't smoke, doesn't drink alcohol, doesn't have a lot of stress in his or her life? Or do you see somebody that might order takeout a lot, visit fast food chains a lot, drink alcohol, smoke, not work out, sleep bad, have a lot of stress? When it comes to healthy or unhealthy behavior, we know that these habits come in clusters. Rarely will you find somebody who drinks 10 to 15 cans of sugar-free soda a week, but eats healthy, works out a lot, yada 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 yada. More often than not, if somebody drinks, for example, 15 cans of sugar-free soda a week, they also do other things that are hurtful to their body. And all things add up eventually and might cause the horrible things these researchers show. So if you hear, oh, research has shown that people who drink a lot of yada 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 or use a lot of artificial sweeteners get this, it doesn't have to mean that it's purely because of the artificial sweetener. It's probably because their overall lifestyle is unhealthy. And everything they do adds up to them becoming more sick or getting cancer or cardiovascular problems or dementia or whatever that research shows. So to conclude, the research that shows that people get cancer from sweeteners are often done in rats in extremely high dosages, which is not representative for how normal people use artificial sweeteners. And if research shows that some people might get diseases from using artificial sweeteners, it's always because A, they use a lot of it and they have a lot of other unhealthy habits in their life that compounded on top of each other might indeed cause all these health problems. Now, besides all the things I just discussed, there's also one big psychological disadvantage of using artificial sweeteners, and that's the following. We know that people who decide to drink sugar-free sodas tend to increase the portion size of their meal. For example, if people are planning to visit a fast food chain and in their mind they already made the choice that they want to be healthy and drink sugar-free or zero soda, they often tend to order a larger meal at these places, which often means a larger burger with larger fries. And paradoxically, they might ingest more unhealthy food this way than if they just stuck with the sugar-rich soda. So although people choose a sugar-free soda option that contains no calories, their overall caloric intake in a meal might increase because in their mind they've justified ordering a larger burger or a larger fry, and thus they'll eat way more than if they just stuck to the sugar-rich drink. So that's something to consider when using these artificial sweeteners. Is the artificial sweetener making you eat more unhealthy even though you're drinking healthier? That's something to look out for. And Of course, one of the most important drawbacks of using artificial sweeteners is that your urge or need for sweet things in your life will remain. More often than not, people who use artificial sweeteners are addicted to the taste of sweet things. And they want to be good for themselves by replacing the sugar with artificial sweetener, which is less impactful for the blood sugar, type 2 diabetes, or health in general. However, these artificial sweeteners still make you taste sweet and thus maintain your urge or need or addiction for sweet things. So you'll still be an addict to sweet things, you've just replaced A with B, but the urge for sweetness will remain. And of course, this is a problem because if you go on vacation or go out for dinner or go to some party or birthday, not everybody cooks with artificial sweeteners. And if you still have that urge for sweet stuff, you will order the cake or you will eat that cookie or ice cream. And of course, these products will be full of added sugars instead of artificial sweeteners. So if you have an urge for sweet stuff and use artificial sweeteners to satisfy that need, just know that you're perpetuating the addiction for sweet stuff you already have, and you're just replacing it with a less harmful substance when it comes to blood sugar problems, type 2 diabetes, and obesity, but it's still maintaining your addiction for sweet stuff. Which brings me to the best way how to use these artificial sweeteners if you want to use them anyway. You should see these artificial sweeteners as a treat, as something you do from time to time. You don't want to drink sugar-free soda every day because you have it at home. No, you want to drink sugar-free soda from time to time, maybe if you go for dinner or if you're on vacation. Treat it as something special, something you do from time to time or for special occasions only. If you make it a daily or weekly thing in your life, then you will make it harder for yourself in the long run to eat healthy and reduce your urge or need for sweet stuff in your life. Because what we've learned from all the people we've helped is that if they choose to not eat sweet things, whether it's sugar-rich or sweetener-rich, with time, their urge and need for sweet stuff will go away. And if, for some reason, they eat something that is sweet, either sweetened with sugar or with artificial sweetener, they often get nauseous, their teeth start hurting, and they really don't enjoy what they just ate because their tongue and their brain has adjusted their sweetness levels to the sweetness levels of healthy food, which are, of course, way lower than those of cakes and cookies and sodas and whatnot. Now, when it comes to the best sweeteners to use, there are two things to choose from. From the polyols, it's best to choose erythritol. This is a sweetener that contains 0 caloric content, has a glycemic index of 0, and if you use it at normal dosages or normal amounts, you shouldn't experience any side effects, so 0 side effects. Now, when it comes to buying erythritol, you really should look out for the fake stuff. More often than not, in grocery stores, you can find a lot of erythritol brands and types. But if you look at the back of the packaging, it often contains a huge amount of table sugar with a small amount of the sweetener, but they try to pass it off as fully sweetener. You want to buy the stuff that is 99%, 98% or 100% sweetener based, and not something that is full of sugar but with small amounts of sweetener. And this information you could find on the back in the ingredients lists. So watch out for the fake stuff in the supermarket that is just being promoted as healthy and sweetener based, but it's mostly sugar. Another good sweetener to use is stevia. Stevia is a plant-based sweetener, and it also has no caloric content and a glycemic index of 0. As far as we know, stevia doesn't have any side effects or disadvantages. The only disadvantage is it has somewhat of a bitter or artificial tasting aftertaste, which some people find unenjoyable. But other than that, you're allowed to use it as you like. And to conclude this video, it's okay to use artificial sweeteners from time to time. And the horror stories about these substances are definitely not true. However, we don't advise you to use them on a day-to-day basis because they will maintain the urge for sweetness in your life, and they do have proven disadvantages or side effects if you use them a lot and often. Treat these artificial sweeteners as treats in your life for special occasions and only use them sparingly. At the end of the day, they will do more harm than good, even though they have no effect on your blood sugar or type 2 diabetes. It's best to live without them, but to enjoy life, I could imagine that you from time to time want to taste sweet tasting things. And in that case, using sweeteners is okay. But again, use common sense, don't use them too much and don't use them too often. That's it for this video about artificial sweeteners, blood sugar problems and type 2 diabetes. If you want to read more about this subject, there's a link in the description of this video. And if you're on our website anyway, don't forget to subscribe for free to our diabetes free secret. This is a small document we give away in which we teach you the main causes of blood sugar problems and type 2 diabetes, and what you can do to prevent, improve and fully reverse these problems with healthy nutrition. If you have any questions about this subject, please leave a comment down below and I'll see you in the next video.